Good morning. My name is Shelby Fulmer. Could you tell me your name and a little bit about yourself?
All right, I'm Brock Phillips. I am the supervisor of curriculum and instruction K-12 here at Sugar Valley Rural Charter School. It's definitely quite a mouthful, and the job is definitely pretty involved as well to match that.
Awesome. Could you tell me a little bit about what you do here?
Yes, so like I said, there's a whole awful lot that I do here at the school. So just to summarize some, I oversee any evaluation of curriculum materials, the purchasing process and requisition acquisition, any training for the teachers on those programs, as well as implementation, quality assurance of that whole process, providing instructional support for teachers, and then coaching whenever that's necessary. It can mean anything like engaging in action research and observations, doing some co-teaching in order to model strategies. I also oversee a team of 5 other curriculum experts in the school from across the grade levels and content spectrum. They assist quite a bit with a lot of these tasks, as is needed as they're able to. That team also helps me to analyze a lot of the school-wide data to monitor trends and ensure the progress that we're making is adequate toward achieving some of those targets. And then also they assist in delivering professional learning opportunities for teachers aligned with any of the targets that we do set over the course of the year or a comprehensive plan cycle. Additionally, I ensure that our administration has access to data that they need to monitor any teaching and learning that occurs in the classrooms that they support and oversee, and also share data with a lot of the teachers around our school to support them in planning and taking ownership of modifications to instruction and assessment, seek to maximize the outcomes for our students. I work with our teachers as well to ensure student behaviors support those maximized learning outcomes, and then assist with interventions when behaviors inhibit those kinds of maximized outcomes. I also design and manage a lot of additional projects as they come up throughout the course of the year, which might prove to be prudent to driving success across any additional school-wide initiatives and goals.
Awesome. Thank you. Could you tell me about one of the times where you worked with a teacher to assist with student behavior to learn for maximizing learning outcomes?
Yeah, I would say in the last couple of years, there have been a few times in middle school. There definitely tend to be some additional struggles maybe that we don't see before, and we kind of settle out after. We had a class of 8th grade students pretty recently where just had a lot of students that had a challenging time engaging, and because of that, it was kind of difficult for the students to really make a lot of the progress we needed to. We had a lot of students that weren't retaining information from one lesson to the next, or from even one unit to the next. And so I had worked with a teacher to kind of do a little bit of action research on just what was going on in the classes that made it so that some of these students were kind of tuning out and not engaging. And after a couple of sessions, we recognized that some of the patterns that were emerging were that the types of questions that were being asked of different student groups were very different based on things like the perceived proficiencies of those students as well as the gender. And so after recognizing that the teacher in question was providing a lot of very low-level questions to some of the male students in the classroom that this teacher didn't really see a lot of other proficiencies with, we worked with the teacher to be able to kind of adapt the question types, which ended up getting students more engaged, if they knew that there were higher questions being asked. And then, just because of that perception from the student's point of view, a lot of the behaviors that we saw of the tuning out, a lot of the behaviors with giving attitude back when the teacher tried to redirect the student, we were able to prevent a lot of those behaviors proactively instead of having to address those directly. And then subsequently, whenever we kind of kept track of grades on assessments and grades on formatives and summatives as well, we saw a number of improvements. Definitely a number of improvements in a lot of those grades, and we were able to determine that was in direct correlation with students' engagement levels, and just cutting back on a lot of those kinds of misbehaviors in the classroom that inhibited or prohibited the learning from taking place. It pulled things a lot tighter, and students were happier with how things were going and more engaged, and teachers had a nicer time, and a decrease in write-ups then because of those kinds of things, and just altogether a more positive experience in that classroom.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So you really touched on your roles and responsibilities, and I thank you for that. For my next question, how closely do you think teachers follow Common Core, state, and our district standards?
Mhm. And so, with a lot of the duties and responsibilities in my job, a big part of recent developments is really getting teachers a lot better acquainted with the process of designing their curriculum and formalizing things into curriculum maps. So through that process, that's really helped myself as well as my team and our administrators to have a lot better of a handle on exactly to what degree our teachers are incorporating and aligning with Common Core and state standards. So through this process of teachers creating curriculum maps, the maps do describe in very great detail how instruction for each class they teach addresses the relevant Common Core and state standards. It gives us an opportunity to keep tabs on that as a teacher is developing a map. If we kind of double check on a map in progress, or if a teacher feels they're completed and we're finding that maybe something's missing, or it's only addressed maybe, a standard may only be addressed one time and it's only at a very surface level, that gives us a chance to, get with that teacher one-on-one and kind of, question strategies and maybe try to nudge a person into maybe developing things a little bit more so that we're more robustly and squarely and completely addressing this Common Core state standards. In addition to a lot of the teachers of the state tested content areas, they work to ensure that they're incorporating an address of the anchors and eligible content for the assessments as well. In a lot of cases, there's a significant amount of overlap there, but there are some times, there are certain standards at certain grades wherever the anchors are different enough from the way that the standards are written that we have to kind of adjust the way instruction is taking place to make sure that we're addressing both standards as well as the anchors, so that our state test results are showing that our students are learning everything that they need to learn, but that we're also not choosing. We're able to get all of our standards covered adequately into a great enough depth and sufficiently many times for attention, but then also making sure that the anchors are addressed so the students are getting to those assessments prepared for what it is that they need to show. The mapping process is ever evolving. So although the teachers at Sugar Valley are in the process of shoring up their maps at this point to incorporate all the standards and anchors, they are also continually revising the maps to better support students' mastery of standards and anchors. And even this upcoming year, we have some new initiatives in place to help teachers in content areas kind of pull together to support each other and making even greater improvements than ever before.
Can you tell me about some of these initiatives?
Absolutely. So for the first time, our school has been able to incorporate the strategy of having common planning time for our teachers. In elementary, that looks like having teachers at neighboring grade levels once each of our 6-day cycles to have a half-hour planning period wherever they can get together. They can analyze data from recent instruction, or at the beginning of the year we'll be taking a look at some of the state assessment results and figuring out what we can interpret and infer from there. And then at the secondary level, we're asking teachers to group themselves based on departments. So teachers that are teachers of English language arts will have once a 6-day cycle, a half-hour period to get together and discuss some similar things, looking at data, looking at what they're teaching and how they're teaching it, looking at strategies, sharing ideas with one another. That department specifically has just been talking with me a lot in the past handful of days of back-to-school PDs about how they want to, in their words, kind of take each of their individual ladders, is their analogy, take their ladders and then connect their ladders to each other so that there's a very, very clear progression that students have an easy time grasping and elevating throughout the course of all the high school ELA classes that we have. In some cases, some of those groups are a little bit overlapping. Like we have some science teachers that also have some shop and technology classes, and business and technology, and so it is a bit of a challenge to find ways to, with our K-12 school to make everything fit for everybody. But so far, after rolling out a lot of these initiatives and sharing the details with teachers, I've got an overwhelmingly positive response. I've heard from a lot of people where they can describe not only what the idea is at this point, but what they're planning on doing with it in order to really maximize outcomes for improvements in their instruction for the benefit of their students. So that's one of the biggest developments that we have coming up this year that everybody's just very excited about.
That's awesome. Now, during this common planning time, you had mentioned curriculum mapping as well. will the different members of each department discuss their own curriculum maps to maximize how they're going to connect their ladders, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's after diving very deep into curriculum mapping, it's a topic that we realize that we want to have in the periphery, but not maybe as a central target, with the understanding that they're living, breathing documents, and they will always evolve. And any time that a strategy is updated and upgraded, that we want to make sure that our maps are reflecting those things. And so, as a big part of the Common Planning Time, we want to make sure that teachers are keeping those maps for relevant classes that they teach very close by, and that they are working in them sufficiently that they can be very well versed in what's changing and what's in there, and what they feel confidently that they're doing well, and where they might want to make improvements. And in that way, if they're very well versed in what it is they're creating, then they can really take a lot out of the conversations with other teachers. And if somebody is able to provide some kind of guidance or support in the way that somebody has identified they maybe are not quite all the way there with their own map for a class, just sharing those strategies can get us all to a better place a lot more efficiently and quickly, and without having to reinvent the wheel or go to find our own solutions.
Going off my script here a little bit, do you think that the Sugar Valley Rural Charter School, compared to other districts or other schools, works more collaboratively to create similar curriculum outcomes and goals?
That's a really good question. I would say, compared to some of the places that I have worked or participated, I can't speak for every school that's out there, but in my experiences in other places, in larger districts specifically, I've noticed that there are a lot more guidelines, maybe I could say. There's a lot more control from the district level, a lot more hard lines that cannot be crossed. There are a lot more constraints that teachers are held to, and so they may have really wonderful ideas, but they kind of struggle to get those ideas off the ground. And a lot of times they feel, I've talked to a lot of people that feel kind of disempowered, I guess maybe would be the term for it. They feel like they have a lot to give, but even their best ideas end up not coming to fruition just because of those limitations or the levels of bureaucracy that they've got to convince so many people, and they just can't get all the way there. With us being a school of choice, with us being a charter school, with us having some independence from our home district even, and being a small staff, being a small school in a small community, there is definitely a sense of community here that I really haven't felt in a lot of other places. I would say that of everywhere that I've ever worked or participated, it feels very much like the teachers are connected with one another, and that's been increasingly the case over the last handful of years, and the hope is that continues to build into this upcoming school year. I've just seen where we have freedoms here, we have liberties to be able to design what it is that we feel is right, that maybe in other places it would be challenging to really have that same feeling of autonomy, to be able to make this situation what we really feel like it should be. And it's not to say that there's not oversight to ensure the quality of things, because between myself and in my curriculum team and a number of experts across departments that are also taking leadership roles in ensuring that everybody is working toward the best of our abilities for the best benefit of our students. But just the autonomy and the freedoms that people have here compared to other places, I have definitely noticed that it seems to be very motivating for a lot of our staff members to really dig in and do the best work, because they have the agency to be able to do the best work that they feel that they can possibly do.
Okay, that absolutely makes sense. You had mentioned that you have a curriculum team, and to be fair, as somebody that works with you, I know a little bit about this, but could you tell me a little bit about our CDI team?
Yeah, so the CDI team, it's an acronym just like many other alphabet soup instances in education. It stands for Curriculum, Data, and Innovation. At the onset of this team, whenever I organized everybody, I think 5 years ago at this point, hard to think that it was that long now, we recognized that following our technology team, that team had supported a lot of initiatives of technology development, and once our teachers got proficient with technology, we felt we needed to take a larger focus in our school. So we decided that curriculum, of course, was central to pulling everybody together to be able to do the best work. It was a larger umbrella than just just tech. Looking at data to further inform everything that we're doing and ensure that we're not just guessing and checking or kind of casting out into the pond and hoping to catch a fish, but knowing that we are doing the very best that we can by measuring how our students are responding to different things that we're trying out, ensuring that what we're doing is actually the best we can do and not just that we hope or think that it is the best that we can do or feel it's the best we can do. And then innovation, just because if we are not continually trying to find new ways to move forward and move upward, then we're left in the past, and when things get stale and stagnant, then it's it's very simple for mediocrity to kind of prevail in those kinds of situations. So the team, let's see here, the team does a whole awful lot at the school to support teachers, and we kind of discussed about different training opportunities, but we're continually getting together. Once a month we organize together and have a meeting where we readdress priorities, but constantly, on a daily basis, I'm checking in with each of those people, and we're talking about even individual initiatives that others take on. There's one of the members of the team is somebody who's worked in the math and science departments pretty extensively, special ed support, and a lot of times she'll work to kind of bring different groups of teachers together under certain initiatives. So she's done a lot of alignment with math, and she has identified a lot of different pieces of curriculum and other materials that have been very beneficial in addressing some gaps that we've noticed in some of our student groups in the last few years. She's also done a lot of work with culture and helping teachers to be able to build better relationship with students that are foundational to the maximized outcomes. It's very difficult to get without those relationships of support. Got some other folks that have put together multiple different focus groups, so we can leverage a lot of the talent that we have in some other staff members as far as reaching out, collecting different ideas for potential purchases for something like an SEL curriculum, or most recently for an elementary science curriculum. And so that CDI team member has organized, at this point, 2 different focus groups of teachers to be able to bring together a lot of different possibilities for programs we may purchase, and again, gathering all the data and comparing these programs apples to apples to look at what other teachers out there and different social groups online are saying, and to reach out to folks that are right in our backyard who have direct experience with these programs and can speak to how those different programs will work with students that are like our own. And at the end of it, getting that group together and sitting down and looking at all the information we have, and then making the most informed decision, and from there even moving forward to ensure that all the rest of our staff are at that point on board with the ideas that we have, and understand how we have gotten to this final stage, and that we're not just pulling an option randomly out of a hat, that we've done our due diligence and a significant amount of legwork to ensure that what we are recommending is the very best that we could, with all points considered. The team really is made up of a lot of hubs. So these people are sources of information for a broad and overlapping swath of our school, of our teachers and other staff. In a lot of cases, teachers will have a certain member that they connect with very well, and it could be because of their content area, their grade levels that they support. It could just be about personalities. And in those cases, they may find that they're reaching out to that person specifically for support when they need it, and in many cases, that person can give them everything they could want and more. But even at times whenever they may not have all of the answers, the team has done a phenomenal job of either being able to find or locate answers and solutions, or being able to connect them with a different hub within our group, or in the larger school staff, that will be able to get them everything that they need in order to make the improvements that they want.
Awesome. You had touched on one of our team members getting an SEL curriculum, getting up and going for us. Mm-hmm. Would you say that there is a strong connection between positive SEL and strong curriculum, and the data to back that up?
I would say so. So far, we've got a couple of classrooms, specifically at the elementary level, that have done an outstanding job of implementing our SEL curriculum, Second Step, with Fidelity. They've done a lot of work with, especially with building relationships and seeing the value in, helping students to see the value in themselves and to connect to others and see the value in others. And in a lot of cases, whenever students feel like they're a part of something larger than themselves, they feel like they are connected to their classmates, they feel like they're a part of their class. Those kinds of attitudes have been shown in a lot of research to support the collaboration, to support strategies like a jigsaw model within a classroom. Even a lot of the science programs that we identified and the science program we've selected, it's very much hinged on grouping of students together so that they can collaborate and each person taking a part of a larger job and being accountable to one another. Without those kinds of pro-social skills within students, it's very challenging to get students to engage in those processes successfully. So in the classrooms that have done a phenomenal job with SEL and a lot of the pilots of the curriculum that we've had that really require student engagement, or in a lot of the really robust strategies where students are engaged with one another, we tend to find that those students have a much easier time successfully working together as a group and have better outcomes overall just because of having those pro-social skills in place.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much. From your own observations, what instructional models or strategies do instructors here at Sugar Valley usually use to engage our learners in different learning activities?
So at a K-12 school, that's a really, really big question for sure. And of course, in a K-12 setting with diverse learners of all different places in the spectrum, there are all kinds of answers that are correct for all kinds of different learners and all kinds of different grades and content areas as well. So what works, if I can kind of walk through, for early elementary ELA, that is a very different domain and content area. It's very different from what works in middle level math and science, or secondary social studies, or music, art, or ag shop classes. For elementary ELA, we have a lot of programs and curriculums in place where we have a lot of grouped activities for phonics and early literacy, things such as like ECRI and Heggerty. We use a number of other resources like UFLI. Anything that really centers around structured literacy and the science of reading and science of writing. We're really looking at Scarborough's rope and how in those early grades the different strands are built kind of on their own and then pulled together into really robust reading and writing proficiencies. In a lot of cases, those strategies have provided the best engagement that we've seen in a lot of observations in those classrooms. For English language arts in the later elementary and in the middle grades, that connection that I described just a little bit, kind of connection and development of the fluency between decoding, sense making, and encoding and writing, kind of provides for the movement between instructional activities at each lesson, which again, it drives the engagement. And students can see the connection between reading and writing, and they can understand making sense and then using the sense they've made in order to create something new. That makes it simple for them to engage and to want to take part in those learning opportunities. For math and science, pretty much across K to 8, we've noticed in the last handful of years that kind of an inquiry-based method has gotten us the best engagement, and especially with a lot of our most reluctant learners, honestly. So our K to 8 math program is Singapore math-based, and so just in brief, that concept is, or maybe that framework is centered on the idea that no matter what students are bringing in the door, if we can start with hands-on modeling, to get students kind of to level the playing field so that everybody has some kind of prior knowledge and experience to draw from, and moving into more of a pictorial model and being able to represent things with pictures and images and graphics. And once students have become proficient there, moving more into an abstract model where they can reason abstractly within their minds, or can develop their own pictorial models on paper if they would need to reason through something, or have strategies wherever they can reason mathematically and calculate things without any additional support. It's kind of, it's a gradual release. We start with a lot of support and then moving away, but it all starts with those inquiry-based methods and models where students are investigating with their hands, they're digging into things, they're trying things out, they're seeing what works, they're generating questions. And whenever students are the ones that are driving that instruction, that that brings a lot of engagement. In a lot of the science classes, kind of the experience first or phenomenon-based models, a lot of NGSS aligned or 6E model curriculums or methods have been very helpful there. Once again, very hands-on, student-driven, having student groups working together to design a solution to answer a question or to investigate some phenomenon that they are observing. That's all rooted in engagement, because if students are working with their hands and they're investigating, they have to be engaged in the process or nothing will happen. So by design and by default, then they're engaged. A lot of the strategies that we're working with in the middle school grades also kind of extend into 9 through 12. When you get toward the high school level, what we find is that giving a lot more opportunities for choice, providing ideas for students, but allowing them the agency to be able to tailor an assignment or a learning opportunity for their own interests or their own aptitudes, especially incorporating a number of opportunities for them to connect with careers or their own interest in career pathways is really helpful. In a lot of cases in social studies classes, we saw a lot of our best engagement coming from immersive strategies. In a lot of those cases, when students can really envision themselves in the places of people in the past, it gives them the ability to really see what it was like to be those people and to reason through what it would have been like to be in those situations. And whenever you can see yourself in those places, what actually happens throughout the course of history tends to make a whole awful lot more sense, and furthermore you can make inferences in how that might apply to the future and even our present time, and maybe why things are happening now, and what lessons from the past that we can use to make more sense out of and better navigate our present time. There's just a lot more engagement whenever we're not just learning facts and dates, we're actually seeing seeing the perspectives of people from the past, and recognizing that we are really people in the past for someone in the future.
That's a good way of looking at it.
And I guess to wrap things up too, is I kind of left out some areas here. I know for a lot of cases for our music domains, those are very hands-on spaces. Really, it's in most cases you're not sitting and just hearing facts and learning little bits and pieces about art or about music. You're doing those things. You're making art. You're making music. So a hands-on approach there with a blend of the student-driven and teacher-directed instruction definitely drives engagement. There's a lot of adaptation that's necessary there, because of course students in the younger grades need quite a different approach than the students in the middle grades or the high school grades. And the more that students are learning over the years, of course, the more that you can expect from them, the more they have to draw from in order to do greater things and to be able to be more independent and take more autonomy with their work later on. But again, that's where a teacher mind is the most important tool, because the teachers are able to take their knowledge of their students and to be able to design exactly the best blend of student-driven instruction, but also giving them what they need from the teacher to be able to be successful. And kind of finally here for ag shop, as well as phys ed settings, and in a lot of cases, a lot of our technology classes as well. Just by design, a lot of those kinds of classes are largely hands-on and kinesthetic. And so just because of that, that inherent design, a lot of engagement kind of comes out of those kinds of settings as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much. What are some of the effective instructional strategies that you would recommend for our instructors to meet the very diverse needs of our student population, though small?
Yeah, that's another big one as well. In our school, we have a very diverse student population, and honestly, across all of our teachers, we have a lot of diversity there as well. I guess a quote that comes to mind is from Rita Pearson's famous TED Talk from 2013, which said, "No student ever learned from a teacher they didn't like." And so just at the foundations, at the very root of all of this in this question, the relationships are just the most robust foundation to drive engagement, trust, and kind of maximizing the outcomes from a diverse group of students or trainees. That alone is not going to be sufficient, though. You need to have quality instructional design as well that incorporates the knowledge of students and trainees, motivations, and their aptitudes as well. We need to know who we're working with in order to be able to design the best opportunities for them. And that can that can mean employing some different grouping strategies to make use of the different motivations and aptitudes, depending on what it is that we're trying to accomplish in any given learning opportunity. Giving chances for iterative development has been shown to be very successful. It's really the case that your rough draft ends up being what you finally publish, and so giving chances to get ideas out there and develop them, refine them, and then apply that knowledge. It's been really the keystone for us to comprehensively achieve the outcomes for a diverse group. Additionally, just old school constructivism has really been kind of a cornerstone for us as well. Whenever you can really know your group and design an opportunity so that you can draw a lot of knowledge out of certain members of that group, it kind of designates some folks as relative experts within the group, and it lends agency and leadership to some of them. And at the same time, it still allows for some others to add value to a learning experience by applying what's been constructed, and ultimately kind of empowers all within that group to take an active role in driving the success of the whole group as well. And we find that to be really inherently motivating on a very human level. When you can see yourself as valuable to a larger group, then you tend to be more engaged just because you feel like you have something to add. And everybody really does have something to add in cases like those. Of course, it's important to continually assess how things are going, because you could feel very much that it's going well, but checking in pretty consistently to make sure that each member in your diverse group is approaching or achieving the mastery that you're seeking there is ultimately very, very much supremely important to ensure the effectiveness of even your best designs. At the tail end of it all, there are rarely opportunities that are batting 1,000, and so just being able to adapt, on the fly in the face of adverse assessment results, finding out that things did not go as well as you had hoped, being able to take that feedback and quickly find a solution, finding a different path to get anybody who's not there yet where we need to go. Kind of helps us to bridge those last remaining gaps for some of the needier learners.
Awesome, thank you. How are some tech tools used at Sugar Valley to enhance curriculum development, and what instructional practices are used here at our school?
And that's a big one as well. Across education, technology has taken a more and more central role over the last handful of decades, really, but even the last few years, things have exploded and grown so much more quickly than ever before. Although for years teachers were able to make it along without it, at this point, without technology, excellent curriculum development enhancements to instructional practices would just be altogether more challenging endeavors than they really need to be at this point in time. Some examples that I can point to are things like us using spreadsheets to simplify the ongoing and at times arduous task of curriculum mapping. It's definitely been challenging for teachers to kind of put all the pieces together and understand what the job is, but if a technology system that you're asked to use kind of inhibits that thinking and work, as we found our main system was, being able to find another technology like just using simple spreadsheets to collect this information ended up easing a lot of that burden for our teachers, making it simpler for us to do the job. A lot of computer-based assessment tools have become more prominent. They can remove a lot of the tedious tasks for teachers by automatically grading applicable assessment items like multiple choices and sometimes fill in the blanks. They can calculate scores so that way teachers can focus and spend their time on making inferences based on assessments rather than just simply going through and grading things and spending their time and their energy doing that tedious part of the job. There are a lot of tools that are now incorporating artificial intelligence that have even further streamlined the process of development of different curriculum elements and lesson elements. So using tools for simplifying curriculum mapping and unpacking standards, helping to write lesson plans, giving us a springboard, something that's a start and that we can just tweak rather than starting from scratch. Helping to develop graphic organizers for a certain purpose or for certain content areas and grade levels, rubrics to accompany projects that teachers are using to instruct students with that are of high quality and also that push students to reach the very best of their abilities. To help to put together different elements or ideas for projects that you would build rubrics for. To help to put together notes or guided notes that students can use to keep track of important pieces of learning, again, without teachers needing to spend all of the time in the world just creating those resources. There are tools that we've been using to kind of put together presentations based off of grade levels or standards or topics that we're trying to focus in on, or even feeding different pieces of a textbook or curriculum into an LLM and then having it to help us to create different resources as well that are aligned with the text. And of course, a lot of image and video generation that helps teachers as they're putting together different examples. In the past, there were so many times where it was so challenging to find an open source image to help to illustrate something for a group of students, and now we can just create a well-worded prompt and we can get exactly the image that we need, and all we need to do then is just to cite that source in order to make sure that we're still working under copyright. A lot of AI tools are kind of reducing that cognitive load for teachers as well. They can even go as far as to aid and provide feedback to students that would otherwise require an immense amount of time spent working at really high levels of thought in Bloom's taxonomy. When you think about it, giving feedback on a writing sample from a student, it requires a significant amount of time spent at the evaluation stages of thinking when reading through student work, and then the creation of clear feedback from the teacher. It's some of the most challenging cognitive tasks, and to go through an entire class's writing in a timely manner is exceedingly challenging, especially after a long day of work the teachers put in. So using those tools to give writing feedback, even just in preliminary stages so far, is measured to align quite well with some of the rubrics that we're using for writing. In a lot of cases, we can even train some of these LLMs that we're incorporating to be able to give feedback that's, in some cases, uncannily reflective of the way that a teacher would normally give feedback to or grade a student from a rubric. It helps so much just because rather than in the past how students would maybe they'd get writing feedback a handful of days later once a teacher has had sufficient time in their evenings and their personal time to give that feedback. If it's too much later on down the road, a lot of times students have a difficult time actionizing that feedback, and when students can get that quality feedback immediately, then they can turn right around and they can iteratively use that to improve their own writing. Even just beyond some of those writing tools, there are a lot of web-based models and manipulatives incorporated into a lot of math and science curricula that we have at this point in time. It reduces the amount of time that teachers are spending organizing a lot of physical materials, as we can just push out a lot of these resources and students can interact and take away a lot of that foundational knowledge and those experiences that we need without having to spend a lot of extra time just managing physical materials. And it reduces the costs that are associated with maintaining those as well. We struggle with budgetary concerns and allocating funds for various purchases, and in a small school we have a tough time storing items, and so if we can use technology to help us to reduce both of those concerns, it's a wonderful use of technology. And at the end of it all too, we do a pretty solid job of using our networks of human beings out on the web. There are countless Facebook groups and Reddit subs and other teacher networks that are out there that our teachers are continually looking out to and asking questions on in order to just find out from other teachers in the field what they're doing. So even in that way, even on the human level, we're still leveraging technology to make those human connections as well.
Awesome. Do you, going off of this,
Yeah.
do you worry that the implementation of AI might overshine what some of our educators can do, so to speak? Overshine might not be the best word. I know here personally at our school we use AI for the greater good and for taking some of the time away from things that we could be spent doing, engaging more with our students.
Mm-hmm.
But do you worry that this could take over curriculum in a negative way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is kind of a dichotomous question that I hear a lot from people. We want to know, people like to choose one side of a line. It's very simple to call this, something is good or something is bad. It's comfortable for human beings to think in those ways. It's black and white, it's this or it's that. And my favorite way to navigate this kind of conversation is to remind people that those two positions are simply 2 points, and in between them there's a spectrum of possibilities. And the truth is rarely at either end of that spectrum. The whole truth is rarely at the end of the spectrum. What I tend to find is the answers are usually somewhere that's pretty darn close to the middle between two, and you can have a lot of truths that would exist at any number of points along there. At the end of the day, just like any new technology that's come into the world of education over the last however many decades, there's a lot of fear until there's understanding. At the end of it all, these things are just tools. There will never be a substitute for a teacher's discretion. There will never be a tool that's going to be able to do the same type of a job as a teacher is going to be able to do, as far as understanding students on a deep level, understanding the trainees in a trainee session, knowing what their motivations are, understanding them as a person first. And these tools are going to be wonderful to help us to be able to prioritize the human parts of our interactions with students and with trainees, and to push away some of those busy tasks that kind of take our time away from really being human beings with those people. So in my opinion, I think that with the right kinds of communication and the development of the proper types of attitudes toward teachers, keeping at the very center of our radar that relationships are fundamental to the successes in the classrooms, and understanding that any tool that we choose, whether it's AI or otherwise, all that is designed to do is to help us to be human beings with our students and with our trainees, to be able to help them to make the improvements that they want for themselves and that we need from them. So as long as we continue to see these things as simply tools to help us to focus on those people, I don't think that we have a whole awful lot to worry about in that way.
Thank you. What are the best practices that you would suggest for our teachers or trainers to take advantage of modern technology tools in order to prepare our students for their futures, the future of technology even?
Absolutely. It is such a big question right now too, just because even so more than ever before, things are changing so quickly, and so it gets to be tough to even predict what the future might look like. And so we could, for years we, in education we trained teachers on certain strategies, and then we were training teachers on the tools that they'd be using. And at this point, that's not even sufficient to train on the tools that are there, because what's working right now is likely not going to be what's the most beneficial tool to be using in the future. And even 5 years from now, there's likely going to be something that will come along and take its place. And so kind of zooming out even one step further from just strategies or from individual tools, I think the best things that we can do to prepare students for the needs of their future, for future careers, for just being successful and being able to navigate any endeavor that they get into, I think the best thing we can do is to teach these folks how to teach themselves these new tools, how to be a self-directed learner. We can give people opportunities where they're hands-on with these tools, and we challenge them with increasingly complex tasks, and give them the autonomy to be able to discover and uncover ways to use the tools that they know of in order to accomplish a goal, in order to achieve success, in order to increase engagement and collaboration, in order to develop iteratively better and better solutions for whatever the problem is that they're seeking. So at the end of the day, once again, it's not about just the tools, it's about teaching people how to evaluate and how to teach themselves these tools, and how to know when a tool is not doing the very best job that they need the tool to do, and how to be able to bravely move on and to find something that's going to do the job better, and continually reflect on whether the tools that we're using are going to be the best tools for the job. So I'd say just giving people the opportunities to develop those skills. It's important even just beyond kind of the hard or the employable skills there as well. It goes to the very human level of feeling like you are successful, feeling like you're proficient. You could be great at something, but if you don't feel like you're very good at something, it's unlikely that you're going to feel the satisfaction in a job where you're employing those kinds of skills. And so no matter if you're the best that they have, if you don't love what you're doing, you're not going to want to do it. So you could be, on paper, you could be very successful, but if you don't love what you're doing, then is that really successful engagement in the 21st century in endeavors and careers? So just giving people chances to develop those skills while also developing a positive sense of self, recognizing, developing the attitude that they are strong and capable and they're intelligent and that they're able to that they have the confidence in themselves to be able to develop those kinds of solutions and to be able to solve a problem effectively and efficiently. Helping them to find that self-efficacy and really develop that internal locus of control so that they feel confident and capable in whatever they choose to be excellent in.
Brilliant. Thank you. What leadership qualities are required to promote a collaborative professional learning community?
Yeah.
We talk about learning communities a lot. What are ways that make that collaborative and successful even?
Absolutely, and that's such a big one too. I mean, that's, and with leadership, I feel like that's questions like this. I like to say oftentimes that this is the reason that we have a job. It's because the answer to this question is so unclear and it can take so many different forms. In my experiences so far in my communications with other people, I guess the Gandhi quote that you want to be the change that you wish to see in the world really comes to mind. If there's something, as a leader, if there's something that you want to see, if you're not able to demonstrate that for other people and you're not able to model that for other people and show those that you're leading that you're right there with them, it's going to be exceedingly more challenging to motivate those that you're leading to be those people as well. So it doesn't matter whether this is curriculum development. I want to make sure that if I'm asking people to to write and improve curriculum maps, that I can show that I'm doing that for my own classes as well, and I can provide examples of that. If it comes down to something like our common planning time, I want to be in there in those meetings with everybody. I want to be a part of the conversation. I want to know what's happening. I want to help to come up with ideas or to provide the data that folks might need, or to give my own inferences, or to be there to actively participate with everybody. And so whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, I think it's just ultimately important for leaders to understand that if you can't model what it is that you're looking for other people, I think it's going to be very challenging for you to motivate those that you're leading to get to those places and those outcomes that you're really looking for.
That's awesome. It sounds like I know firsthand, but it sounds like you're a really active leader in what you do, and you don't just sit back and watch things unfold, but are constantly implementing new ways to make sure curriculum is great and make sure our PLCs are great. And as an educator at the school, it means a lot to me personally. And in this interview, I'm sure anybody that listens to it would agree with that. And I don't know, maybe other people don't have that and look to that, or maybe people strive to be that, but it's definitely appreciated where we are.
It's definitely something. I think a lot of us that have worked in a number of places have been in that position where you don't feel like you have that kind of support, and we know what that does to us. And so that's, given this opportunity, I felt like I finally had a chance to be able to be that change, to go back to that Gandhi quote. So I really appreciate being seen for that too. Thank you.
Thank you. And then what are some changes that you have noticed moving into the 21st century learning environment?
Oh my goodness. I've only been actively in the world of education for, let's think, 15 years, right in the neighborhood, maybe 15 to 17 years, and been really active for the past probably 13 to 14 of those years directly. Even just over that time, even over the handful of years of leadership, I've definitely noticed just a change certainly it changes in our students. As technology evolves and changes so quickly and so frequently, it feels like the needs of our students are changing so quickly. In educational circles, we talk a lot of times about attention deficits and about how a lot of social media is kind of training our students that they need to constantly be entertained, and they expect that things are going to grab their attention, and it seems that they kind of have challenges in trying to stay engaged with content that isn't flashy and super exciting. It doesn't give those dopamine rewards on a consistent basis. And so as educators, recognizing first and foremost, yes, that's a struggle, yes, it exists, and rather than having a pity party about it, recognizing that our job here is to figure out how we can, number one, leverage those understandings about students' motivations, but number two, help them to build up their perseverance, as it relates to maintaining focus on a task. Helping them to kind of take ownership of building that kind of motivation and engagement by designing and and adapting things that they're doing to be as interesting to them as possible. But also understanding that there are going to be times throughout life wherever you're going to be asked to maybe engage in something that is not exactly your favorite thing, but understanding that you're going to need to do to partake, and to do so, with a smile on your face, and and we need to, I guess, play both sides of that, where we want to give everybody that we're working with the skills to make their lives and their experiences and what they choose to do as rewarding as possible, and understanding that there are times where we have to defer that and delay that gratification and kind of soldier through. So I guess there are always going to be challenges. The challenges are kind of changing. People are becoming more proficient with technology, but they need different instruction on specific types or uses of technology, and learning how to see these things as tools and not as good or bad. Kind of ensuring that we're not just picking a certain standpoint on anything that we're doing. We're making sure that we're seeing the entirety of the people that we're working with and leading, and that we're giving them the tools to, I guess, to help themselves and elevate themselves, but also helping them to be resilient and to have the perseverance to be able to be very gritty and to work through challenges, and to find the satisfaction in anything that they do, and to be able to very deftly navigate whatever it is they find with that broad set of tools that we help them to build up.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I thank you for your time this morning, and look forward to a great school year.
Absolutely, Shelby. It's a pleasure. Thanks.